Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer: nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Nova Minerals, a gold, antimony, and critical minerals exploration and development company focused on advancing the Estelle project in Alaska. It's Chris Gerteisen. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be with you, Jesse.
I want to start off by discussing antimony because this is a commodity that is not brought up very often. Investors don't have much knowledge about it, yet it is absolutely critical, particularly at this point in time. So let's start off with what is antimony, why is it important, and why should investors be paying attention to it?
It's one of the most critical strategic minerals elements known to man that you're right. Most people don't pay attention to or don't know about. It's number 51 on the periodic table. It's got a storied history. Everything historically. Women used it for like eyeshadow and things like that back in ancient times. But everybody's paying attention to it now for sure, because it's one of these commodities that's really come to the fore with all the high tech, green tech. It goes on and on. What it's used for mainly is there's several different refined products. So you have antimony trisulfide, antimony oxide, antimony metal, and antimony kind of compounds for things like semiconductors. The reason it's so hot right now is because there's a total supply crunch. It's just crept up on us like so many other elements like gallium and germanium, and it's one of those that we've totally offshored all of our manufacturing and minerals industry, mining to refining, off to mainly China. And now it's come to crunch time. And I think one of the main reasons why it's really come to the fore here is because of things like the Ukraine war and things like that. Because antimony, it's okay. So in industrial purposes, batteries, Bill Gates and crew with Ambry, the liquid metal battery, long storage battery, that's an antimony based battery. Solar panels. I mentioned the semiconductors with the gallium antimonide and indium antimonide substrates. So all that with the high tech now, really highly needed and sought after element. But with the munitions, it's used in all the munitions and many different military applications. So all small to medium caliber munitions use antimony in the primers. No substitute for that. I mean, even just ammo you can buy off the shelf uses antimony trisulfide, and also to harden the projectile in many of these things for armor piercing and things like that. And so, with the wars and things like that happening, particularly the Department of Defense started to recognize, well, wait a minute. So we're dependent on a foreign adversary to supply our munitions that will potentially be required for any conflict with the foreign adversary. That doesn't make sense. Wait a minute, that's insane, right? And so that was probably the start of it. And then now the re-onshoring of these high tech industries. We got to have the antimony here. And then a big aspect of it, we're always so reliant on China and Russia, and we all know what's happened in that realm. And then China cut us off in September 15th last year, totally cut off exports. And the intel there is they didn't just cut us off for trade wars being mean guys. They don't have the antimony either. So as we've learned more and more about antimony, you look around the world, there's a supply crunch in terms of there's no real resources. Very few people are mining antimony. There's very few antimony mines. The mines that could call themselves only antimony, it's usually gold, and then they have some antimony. But mines that just mine antimony, these are generally artisanal mines in places like, Bolivia and around the world, where just the locals are picking up the rocks. It's very visual, that stibnite mineral off the ground, putting it in bags and sending it to China. But China doesn't have they have depleted resources and incoming stocks of antimony as well. So they need to keep all their antimony for their own uses. So that's really one of the reasons, and the main reason they've cut off all exports is because there's such a supply crunch there. But they do control the refining facilities, and to re-onshore and get the mining and the refining back to the U.S. That's really where a company like Nova Minerals comes in. We've really been a first mover in this space.
That was a great summary. If you could provide a bit more color on the current supply chain, obviously China cutting off exports, as you mentioned, a very important point. And then when it comes to North America, are there any major producing mines? Is there any major producing mines anywhere else in the world? Where is future antimony supply going to come from?
So in the U.S., there are no producing mines. So the only the largest antimony producing mines are in Russia, and so there's a company there called Polius, I believe it is. But of course, Russia's highly sanctioned, and no antimony has been coming out of that. In fact, China hasn't been receiving their any antimony from Russia as well, and we don't know. It's a little bit opaque there how that works. But the understanding is, the thinking is that it's a gold mine, and they've been focused on the gold mining, and they've been putting antimony ore in stockpiles. So there is a stockpile there. Also in Tajikistan, there's some antimony mining, and as I understand, a lot of that production goes to Europe. There is, and as I said, there's a lot of artisanal mining, but it's mainly in places like Myanmar, a little bit in Bolivia, Laos, places like that. And that's real small scale. Like I said, just people like you and me picking it up visually, putting it in bags, and mostly sending it to China because they have the refining capacity. They're the buyers, right? So no, there's no, that's the problem. That's really the supply crunch here. It's a mine supply crunch, resource supply crunch. Antimony deposits tend to be small as well. So this is one of the reasons why the large companies generally don't go for it. And it's usually discovered as part of gold exploration or something like this. It tends to be in vein systems, kind of stringer veins. And so in the past, there hasn't been much incentive in terms of, making profits to go after antimony. And so there's just the exploration, and hasn't been many companies through the years, none basically, almost in the Western world, to go after antimony. So it's a real supply crunch at the mine face. Now people are looking for it, and I expect more companies to come online with antimony. You're seeing a lot more being reported. Companies now looking at their multi-element data. They have a gold project or what have you, and they're saying, hey, we have antimony as well. They're starting to pay attention and tune in. And